Quantifying threats to information security. How dangerous is the enemy at the gate? This presentation consists of 4 parts. 1. Cost-benefit analysis, also called CBA. 2. Cyber identity theft, also called CIDT. 3. Cyber intellectual property theft, CIPT. And finally, 4. Distributed denial of service, or DDoS. Part 1, CBA, Cost-Benefit Analysis. Why should information security professionals perform cost-benefit analysis? One reason is allocation of defense resources. How much money should be spent defending against a $1 million problem? Probably less than $1 million. Another is allocation of research resources. How much money should be spent researching solutions to a $1 million problem? Probably a lot less than $1 million. It's been said often, know your enemy, know yourself. Sun Tzu in The Art of War said, know the enemy and know yourself, and in 100 battles you will never be in peril. This has been quoted by information security professionals too. One of them is Michael Whitman, somewhat famous for his paper Enemy at the Gate, Threats to Information Security, the foundation of this presentation. Dr. Whitman teaches at Kennesaw State University and has said that economic feasibility of implementation is the key, most commonly considered key item for project information security safeguards. So, again, cost-benefit analysis is critical. The equation for cost-benefit analysis ultimately leads to one single point, that the maximum possible value of any safeguard is the amount that you're losing without the safeguard. In this case, max CBA equals ALE prior. In the paper, it specifically states CBA equals ALE prior minus ALE post minus ACS, where CBA is cost-benefit analysis, ALE is annualized loss expectancy, and ACS is the annualized cost of safeguards. Now, the ALE, the loss expectancy prior to implementing safeguards, is ALE prior, and the ALE post is the amount of loss after the safeguards are implemented. In other words, if we had perfect no-cost safeguards, in other words, ALE post was 0. There were no costs after the safeguards were implemented. And ACS is also 0, such that the cost of implementing the security measure is also nothing. Then we can say the max CBA equals ALE prior. The maximum net benefit we can gain is the amount we're losing. Now, if we accept that ALE prior is the maximum possible benefit of any safeguard, then we can compute the asset value based on other parts of this equation, of Whitman's equation. Whitman's equation also extends to say that the ALE is the asset value times the exposure factor times the annualized rate of occurrence. The exposure factor is just the percentage of the asset that is lost when it's attacked successfully. In our cases, we assume that it's 100% successful attack. So if a bank account is attacked, 100% of the bank account gets stolen. In this case, we only count the amount that was lost in the first place. So EF is always 1 in this entire presentation. The ARO, the annualized rate of occurrence, just means the incidence. How many times does it happen per year? And of course, the AV is the asset value. So if ALE equals the asset value times the exposure factor times the annualized rate of occurrence, if that's the case, we can also say that AV equals ALE divided by ARO, assuming EF is always 1. Now, that's Whitman's equation, but we also looked at some other sides of this, which is the attacker side. My personal contribution is that the estimation that the cost of getting caught, assuming an attacker tries to attack an asset, the cost of getting caught has to be less than the asset value divided by the probability of being caught. If it is, attack. Otherwise, do not attack. Consider, instead of ALE, annualized loss expectancy, consider AGE, annualized gain expectancy. If we assume that the asset value of what is lost is the same as in the other equation, and ACA is the annualized cost of the attacks, if AGE is greater than 0, if there's something to be gained, attack. Now we can also assume that the annualized cost of attack is simply the probability of getting caught times the cost of getting caught. So the break-even point is when the AGE equals 0. In other words, if the cost of getting caught is less than AV divided by the probability of getting caught, then attack. The contributions that we're about to show use textbook CBA equations like we've just shown and real-world figures. The estimates consider both victim and attacker. And we also created this new equation, or I created the new equation, from the attacker viewpoint. The results are surprising. Contrary to what is read in the popular media, not all information security threats are underestimated. In the next video, we will discuss CIDT, cyber identity theft.